So shifting gears now, we're going to stay on the topic of football and COVID, but we're going to shift from the NFL game to the college game. So last week, we had the Florida State and the Clemson game. Once was a big game. Now it's an afterthought. But that game was canceled last week because a couple of Clemson players tested positive for COVID, and one player in particular traveled with the team. And this sparked a lot of controversy with the game getting canceled because on one side, you had one coach on the Clemson side saying that they're ducking us. They knew they wouldn't have beat us. They're ducking us, so they would rather not play the game. And on the other end, you have the Florida State guys. They're saying, coaches are not doctors. I'm not trying to be a doctor. I just listen to the doctors, and the player's safety comes first. And if I remember correctly, which we all remember correctly, Clemson was the one who showed up with the player with COVID, not Florida State. And the fact that the Florida State administration chose to postpone the game, that tells me that they're thinking big picture. They're not just thinking about the game on the field. They're not thinking about the TV revenue. They're thinking about, we have to protect the kids. So, but the statements that were made by the Clemson coach, which were that they're ducking us and, you didn't want to play us, you were scared and everything like that. What do you make of his comments? Like, what's your take on his comments, knowing that we're in the wake of a pandemic and he was not thinking about his players' safety? He's more worried about on the field than off the field. Homer?
So, as someone who has been, a fan of Clemson football, this worried me, and it worried me greatly because I believe the exact quote that Dabo Swinney said was, they're ducking us, and this game was not canceled because of COVID. Even though there was a Clemson player that tested positive for COVID, and FSU felt like it was in the best interest of their players that they not play this game. And that sounds to me like a rational reason not to play this game. If you have concerns that a team has COVID, you should be able to opt out of this game. And I commend FSU for taking that position because it's what's best for players and it's what's best for society right now. Because especially right now, during a time where people are going to visit family for the holidays, people are going to visit for Thanksgiving. You don't want that kind of stuff transferring and happening right now. So I have no problem with Florida State actually saying that they don't want to play. And I have a problem with what Clemson is doing and what Dabo Swinney especially said, that he's using this as an excuse to hype a rivalry during the middle of a pandemic when they have a real reason to be concerned. It's stupid. It's childish. And Dabo Swinney is better than that, or I would hope he is. And he's a leader in the NCAA. He's a leader in college football. He's a leading voice of coaches, and he needs to be better. Just take a page out of the FSU coach's book. He said, and I quote, the FSU coach, said, quote, coaches are not doctors. I'm not trying to be a doctor. I just listen to the doctors when he was discussing player safety and player safety coming first. That's mature. That's what leadership sounds like. What Dabo Swinney said was what you would say if a team did cancel the game not in the middle of a pandemic. Dabo Swinney is looking at it strictly from a football perspective, when right now you can't look at it strictly from a football perspective. You have to look at it from the bigger picture of where we are in 2020. So Dabo Swinney, man up, stop being a child, and actually exhibit leadership.
Trenzy, what about you? What is your take
You
on
know
this
what?
situation?
I'm going to be devil's advocate on this. Omer, I think them boys were ducking them. And this is why.
Okay.
They got their ass bust last year, man. What was the score last year? 45,
A lot to a little.
14?
A lot to a little, yeah. It was
A
bad.
lot to a little. They
Yeah,
did
they
not
did.
want that smoke again. Now, they did travel with a player, an offensive lineman, who happened to have COVID. I do understand that. But, okay, to be honest with you, it was kind of bizarre the way that happened because they're supposed to get tested the night before, and they hadn't got tested before they hit Tallahassee. So by the time they got there, they're all hyped up to play, and then they find out that one dude has COVID. I'd be a little bit upset too. And at the same time, I do agree that the coach is not a doctor. Mm-hmm. He's a coach. But at the same time, I think the coach is just going to war for his boys over there.
I just want to say, if a player came out and said this, I would understand it. My problem is that it's Dabo Swinney saying it. He's the head coach. He's the one who's supposed to be the mature voice in the room. He's the one who's supposed to speak up for Clemson football and represent them and their best interests. And by doing this, he's not doing that at all. they chose to play this season, and they knew that this could be a possible outcome. If you have a COVID outbreak on your team, if you have people testing positive, you should not have a problem with any school saying, okay, we don't feel comfortable with playing because we don't want to expose our players to something we know has COVID, to a team that we know has some sort of exposure to COVID. To me, that makes sense that FSU would do that. I just don't understand like the veracity. I understand being frustrated. I just don't get the veracity of Dabo Swinney's claims. That's what I have a problem with. I just want to make that clear.
See, what I think is that, number one, this is once a rivalry. It's not a rivalry anymore. So Florida State realized, listen, Florida State, whether Florida State plays the game, whether they played the game last week or whether they play the game a month from now, they're going to lose. You know what I'm saying? That the outcome is going to be inevitable. I don't think they care. That's why the coach was sitting up there like, I got to worry about my players. Dude, when you think about it from a coach's perspective, when you think about it from a player's perspective, what COVID does is COVID compromises your health, right? What if a player goes out there, he has COVID, his health is compromised. Now he goes out there, he potentially suffers a career-ending injury because his health is compromised. Who's that on? Because the coach wanted to play the game. I think if Clemson was undefeated, had they not lost to Notre Dame a couple of weeks ago, and their college football playoff and their recruiting and all the implications that are hinging on the outcome of this season for Clemson was not in jeopardy, I think Dabo wouldn't have cared. I think he is a coach right now who his back is against the wall and he had a moment of weakness. He showed his true colors and he was like, honestly, for 1 second in an interview, he thought to himself, football is bigger than this pandemic. My future at this school, my reputation at this school is bigger than what's going on right now. And that's why I didn't agree with what he said.
Yeah, and to me, that's just the immature route to take. If you're like I said, players, they're impulsive, they're young. I would understand this from a player. You're a head coach, you get paid to be the mature voice. So he needs to stop being childish. He needs to actually be that voice of reason in that locker room.
I concur. I do think he sounds like a little ass kid, but when you bring up all the facts that Andrew brought up and mentioned, it does make sense why he reacted that way.
Right.
The man's job is on the line. But they were going to
Dabo Swinney's job is probably one of the safest in college football.
It's not so much the fact that his job is on the line, but it's the fact that, like, given how well he's done the last couple of years, like he's had seasons where he hasn't lost games, he's had perfect seasons, he's won championships and everything like that. This is the first year in a while where his team, for once, like, they're up against it. Like, if they don't make the playoff, because when you make the playoff, whether you do or whether you don't, it has long-term implications. It helps you with recruiting. It could hurt you with recruiting. It could help other schools that you're recruiting against. It could help them or it could hurt them. So him not doing well this season, not making the playoffs, he can't sell his program as well to recruits that are coming up. And that could have 3-4 years down the road. It could have implications, negative implications on his program that could set his program back. That's what I think he's worried about, and that's why I think he spoke out and he acted the way he did, and thinking that football and his long-term reputation is bigger than what's going on right now and the safety of his players right now. Hey, guys, thanks for watching. We appreciate it. For more content, please hit that notification bell, comment, subscribe, and everything like that. And just remember, keep it real.